Captain HFY stood 8 feet tall in the cargo bay of Kepler Station. His thick, shell-like skin gleamed under the bright lights. Sharp spikes ran down his back, and his forearms moved with deadly grace. The other aliens in the bay stepped aside when he walked past. They knew better than to get in the way of a Vorthak warrior. HFY watched the small human girl work. Maya Chen looked so tiny, next to the huge metal containers. Her thin skin seemed like it would tear if touched too hard. Her small frame looked weak compared to the massive aliens around her. Yet she moved the heavy boxes with ease, stacking them in perfect rows. "Look at the little Earthborn," said Krell, a blue-skinned alien with 6 tentacles for arms. So fragile. One good hit would break her in half. The other workers laughed. They had all heard stories about humans. Earth was a dangerous world, they said, but the humans who lived there seemed so weak. Their bones looked thin, their skin had no natural armor, they had no claws or fangs or poison glands. How did such soft creatures survive on a deadly planet? HFY shook his massive head. Humans are only good for simple work. Moving boxes. Cleaning floors. Nothing that requires real strength or skill. His voice rumbled like thunder. The other aliens nodded in agreement. Maya heard their words but said nothing. She had been working on Kepler Station for 2 months now. Every day, the aliens made jokes about human weakness. Every day, they treated her like a child who might break at any moment. She just kept working. Her job was to move cargo, and she was very good at it. The station was huge, with dozens of levels and hundreds of alien species. Traders came from all across the galaxy to buy and sell goods. Humans were new to this galactic community. Earth had only made contact with alien life 5 years ago. Most aliens still thought of humans as primitive creatures who got lucky. Maya lifted another container onto the stack. The box weighed 300 pounds. But she handled it like it was empty. The aliens watching thought she was using some kind of machine to help her. They could not believe such a small creature could be so strong. "Amazing what technology can do," said Yix, a tall green alien with scales. "Give a weak species the right tools, and they can pretend to be useful." Maya wanted to tell him she was not using any machines. Her strength came from growing up on Earth, where everything was heavier than on other worlds. But she had learned to keep quiet. Let them think what they wanted to think. HFY moved closer to watch her work. His red eyes studied her movements. Something bothered him about this human, though he could not say what. She moved too smoothly. Too quickly. Her hands never shook, even when lifting the heaviest boxes. "You there, Earthborn?" HFY called out. His voice made the metal walls shake. Maya looked up. "Yes, sir? How do you move those containers so easily?" "What machine are you hiding?" Maya smiled politely. "No machine, sir. Just doing my job." HFY's eyes narrowed. Was this little creature lying to him? No alien would dare lie to a Vorthak warrior. But humans were too primitive to understand proper respect. The other workers had gathered around to watch. They loved it when the captain questioned the humans. It always ended with the humans looking foolish and scared. "Show me your hands," HFY ordered. Maya held up her hands. They looked normal to the aliens. Small. Soft. With 5 thin fingers each. No claws. No extra joints. No obvious signs of hidden strength. HFY grabbed her wrist with one of his huge hands. Maya's arm looked like a twig in his grip. He squeezed gently, expecting her to cry out in pain. Instead, Maya just waited calmly for him to let go. "Your bones should be breaking," HFY said, confused. "Human bones are pretty strong," Maya said. "We have to be tough on Earth. Gravity is heavier there than most places." The aliens laughed at this. Everyone knew Earth gravity was only slightly higher than standard. Such a small difference could not make humans stronger than other species. HFY released her wrist and stepped back. Something was not right here, but he could not figure out what. Humans were supposed to be weak. The galactic databases all said so. Yet this one seemed different. Maya went back to her work. She moved another container, then another. Each one weighed hundreds of pounds. But she handled them like toys. The aliens watched in silence now, their laughter fading. "Perhaps the databases are wrong," whispered Krell to his friend. "Perhaps humans are not as weak as we thought." But Yix shook his head. "Impossible. Look at her. She has no armor, no claws, no natural weapons. She is just a soft little creature who got lucky." Zexhai said nothing, but his mind was working. In all his years as a warrior, he had learned to trust his instincts. And his instincts told him that Maya Chen was hiding something that made her more dangerous than she appeared. The workday continued. Maya finished stacking the containers and moved on to the next shipment. She worked faster than any of the alien workers, but they did not notice. They were too busy talking about human weakness to see human strength. As the shift ended, Zexhai watched Maya clean up her work area. She moved with the smooth grace of a trained fighter, though she probably did not realize it. Her balance was perfect. Her reflexes were quick. Her movements were efficient and controlled. For the first time in his life, Captain Zexhai wondered if the Vorthak might be wrong about something, but that thought was too dangerous to consider seriously. The Vorthak were the strongest warriors in the galaxy. They could not be wrong about such a simple thing as human weakness, could they? Maya finished her work and headed for the exit. Tomorrow would bring another day of heavy lifting and alien jokes. She had learned to ignore the comments about human frailty. Let them believe what they wanted to believe. She had no idea that her quiet competence was about to change everything. The next morning, Maya arrived early for her shift. She liked the quiet time before the other workers showed up. The cargo bay felt peaceful when empty, with only the soft hum of the station's systems for company. She was carrying 4 containers at once when it happened. Each container weighed 200 pounds. But Maya had stacked them on a hover cart and was pulling them easily toward the storage area. The cart moved smoothly on its magnetic rails until it hit a small bump in the floor. The bump was tiny, barely an inch high. Most aliens would not even notice it. But the heavy cart bounced slightly, and Maya had to adjust her grip to keep the containers steady. She took one quick step to the side to maintain her balance. Right into Captain Zexhai. The massive Vorthok warrior had been walking through the cargo bay, inspecting the morning deliveries. He was not watching where Maya was going because he did not expect a human to be moving so fast. The collision knocked him off balance for just a moment. Maya bounced off his thick shell and stumbled backward. The containers on her cart shifted but stayed in place. She quickly steadied herself and looked up at the towering alien. "I'm so sorry, Captain," Maya said immediately. "I didn't see you there. The cart hit a bump, and I had to step aside to keep everything balanced." Zexhai stared down at her with his burning red eyes. In Vorthak society, physical contact without permission was a serious insult. When that contact came from a lesser species, it demanded immediate punishment. No creature had ever dared to bump into him before. "You struck me," Zexhai said slowly. His voice was deadly quiet. "It was an accident," Maya explained. "I was just trying to keep the cargo stable. I really am sorry." Other aliens had gathered around them now. Word spread quickly on the station when something interesting happened. They formed a circle, watching the confrontation with eager eyes. This was better than their usual entertainment. Krell whispered to his friend Yix. "The little human is in trouble now." Zexhai raised himself to his full height. His spikes bristled with anger. "In my culture, when a lesser being strikes a warrior, they must show proper submission. You will kneel before me and ask forgiveness in the traditional way." Maya looked confused. "I already said I was sorry. It was just an accident. Can't we just call it even and move on?" "The fort call. The said will." Maya looked confused. The watching aliens gasped. No one talked to a Vorthak warrior like that. They expected Maya to drop to her knees immediately, or perhaps run away in terror. Instead, she just stood there, looking politely confused. "You refuse?" Zexhai's voice rose dangerously. "No lesser species has ever refused my commands." "I'm not refusing anything," Maya said calmly. I apologized for the accident. That should be enough. I need to get back to work now. She started to move away, but ZXHY blocked her path with one of his massive arms. The watching crowd grew larger as more aliens heard about the confrontation. Security cameras turned to focus on the scene. You will kneel, ZXHY demanded. You will place your head on the ground and speak the words of submission. Only then will your insult be forgiven. Maya sighed. She had dealt with difficult people before, but never anything like this. On Earth, when someone demanded ridiculous things, you could just walk away. But here on the station, she needed to keep her job. She needed to find a way to resolve this without making things worse. Look, Captain, Maya said patiently. I understand you're upset. But where I come from, people don't grovel on the ground unless they've done something really wrong. I bumped into you by accident. I said I was sorry. That's how humans handle these situations. The aliens in the crowd muttered among themselves. They had never seen anyone refuse a Vorthak demand before. Some looked excited, eager to see what would happen next. Others looked nervous, afraid they might be too close when the violence started. ZXHY felt his honor burning like fire in his chest. Every member of his warrior class was watching through the station's communication network. If he backed down now, his reputation would be destroyed. No Vorthak could allow a human to show such disrespect. Your human customs mean nothing here, he growled. You are on my station, in my cargo bay. You will follow my rules. Actually, this is a neutral station, Maya pointed out. It belongs to the Galactic Trade Council, not to the Vorthak. And according to station rules, all species are supposed to be treated equally. More gasps from the crowd. Talking back to a Vorthak warrior was like playing with fire. Everyone knew the Vorthak had terrible tempers and loved to fight. Maya seemed completely unaware of the danger she was in. ZXHY's 4 hands clenched into fists. His spikes rattled with rage. This tiny human was making him look weak in front of hundreds of witnesses. In Vorthak culture, there was only one way to handle such humiliation. You dare quote station law to me? He snarled. You think your pathetic human government will protect you out here? Maya's expression hardened slightly. She had been patient, but there were limits to how much insult she would accept. I think station security will protect me if you threaten me. And I think my work record speaks for itself. I've never caused problems for anyone. Your work record? ZXHY laughed. But it was not a pleasant sound. You move boxes. Any child could do your job. Could any child lift 4 containers at once? Maya asked. Could any child work 12-hour shifts without getting tired? Could any child solve the loading problems that had everyone confused last week? The crowd was getting larger. Aliens from other shifts had heard about the confrontation and come to watch. Some had recording devices, planning to share the drama with friends across the galaxy. Everyone expected to see the little human finally put in her place. ZXHY felt trapped. He could not back down without losing face, but the human showed no signs of giving in. Her calm confidence was starting to worry him, though he could not say why. Something about her reminded him of the young warriors he had trained, just before they proved they were ready for real combat. But that was impossible. Humans were weak. Everyone knew that. The standoff continued, with neither side willing to give ground. The tension in the cargo bay grew thicker by the moment. Something had to break soon. And everyone knew it would not be peaceful. The cargo bay had gone completely silent. Even the station's background hum seemed quieter than usual. Captain ZXHY stood facing Maya Chen, his 4 arms trembling with rage. The crowd of aliens pressed closer, sensing that violence was about to explode. Last chance, Earthborn, ZXHY said through gritted teeth. Kneel and submit, or face the consequences. Maya looked around at all the watching faces. She could see the excitement in their eyes. They wanted to see her broken and humiliated. They wanted proof that humans were as weak as everyone said. I won't kneel, Maya said quietly. Not for something I didn't do wrong. ZXHY's control finally snapped. With a roar that shook the metal walls, He brought his massive right hand around in a sweeping backhand, aimed at Maya's face. The blow carried all the force of his 8-foot frame and warrior training. It was meant to shatter bones and teach respect. The strike should have sent Maya flying across the cargo bay. It should have broken her jaw and maybe her neck. Every alien watching expected to see the little human crumple like a broken toy. Instead, something impossible happened. Maya saw the attack coming with perfect clarity. Time seemed to slow down as her body's ancient defense systems kicked into action. Adrenaline flooded her bloodstream, sharpening her focus and quickening her reflexes. Her heart rate spiked, pumping oxygen-rich blood to her muscles. HFY's hand was moving fast, but not fast enough. Maya had grown up on a world where everything was heavier, where reflexes had to be lightning quick to survive. She had trained in martial arts since childhood, learning to use an opponent's strength against them. The backhand connected with the side of her head. But Maya was already moving. She rolled with the impact, letting it spin her body instead of fighting against it. The blow that should have shattered her skull instead sent her into a controlled spin. As she turned, Maya's hands shot out and grabbed HFY's extended arm. Her fingers found the pressure points she had learned about in her anatomy classes. Every species had weak spots, even the mighty Vorthak. HFY felt the tiny human hands lock onto his arm and laughed. What could such a weak grip possibly accomplish? Then Maya's feet left the ground. And suddenly, everything went wrong. Using his own momentum and her spinning motion, Maya swung herself around HFY's arm like a gymnast on a bar. Her body moved in a perfect arc, her feet coming up and over as she flipped herself behind him. The massive warrior found himself off balance. Pulled forward by his own attack, Maya landed behind HFY and immediately planted her feet. Her muscles, developed under Earth's heavy gravity, coiled like springs. She grabbed his arm with both hands and dropped her center of gravity low. Then she pulled. The throw was a thing of beauty. Maya used every principle of leverage she had ever learned. HFY's own forward momentum carried him over her shoulder as she rolled backward. For a moment, all 8 feet and 400 pounds of Vorthak warrior flew through the air. He hit the floor with a sound like thunder. The metal deck plates buckled under the impact. His thick shell cracked against the unyielding surface, and he skidded several feet before coming to a stop. But Maya was not finished. Before HFY could recover, she was on him. Her small hands found his left arm and twisted it behind his back in a joint lock that no Vorthak had ever experienced. She planted her knee between his shoulder blades and applied just enough pressure to keep him pinned. The entire fight had lasted exactly 20 seconds. The cargo bay was absolutely silent. Hundreds of aliens stared in shock at the impossible scene before them. Captain HFY, the famous Vorthak warrior, lay face down on the floor with a tiny human girl holding him helpless. Maya's breathing was steady and controlled. The adrenaline was still flowing through her veins, but she felt calm and focused. She had not wanted to fight. But once it started, her training had taken over. "Are we done here, Captain?" Maya asked politely. "Because I really do need to get back to work." HFY tried to move, but the pain in his shoulder was incredible. The human's grip was like steel, and she had found pressure points he did not even know he had. Every time he tried to shift position, the pain got worse. "How?" he gasped. "How is this possible?" Maya loosened her grip slightly but kept him pinned. "Earth gravity is 1.2 times standard," she explained patiently. "We grow up strong just to walk around. Plus, my people have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We got pretty good at it." The crowd of aliens started murmuring among themselves. They had just seen their entire understanding of human weakness destroyed in 20 seconds. If this small female could defeat a Vorthak warrior so easily, what could human males do? What could human soldiers do? Krell was shaking his blue head in disbelief. "The databases," he whispered. "The databases were wrong. Completely wrong." Yix nodded slowly. "We underestimated them. We all underestimated them." Maya released HFY and stepped back. The massive alien rolled over slowly, his red eyes filled with pain and confusion. He had been trained since birth to fight, and he had just been defeated by someone he could have crushed with one hand. Or so he had thought. "I'm sorry I had to do that," Maya said, offering him her hand to help him up. "But you did swing first. Station security will back me up on that." HFY stared at her outstretched hand. Such a small hand. Such a fragile-looking hand. The same hand that had just thrown him across the cargo bay like he weighed nothing. He ignored her offer and struggled to his feet on his own. His shell was cracked in several places, and his left arm hung at an awkward angle. But his pride was hurt worse than his body. "This is not over," he said, though his voice lacked its usual thunder. Maya shrugged. "It is for me. I have work to do." She turned and walked back to her cargo cart, which was still sitting where she had left it. The containers had not moved an inch during the entire fight. Maya grabbed the handle and continued toward the storage area, leaving a crowd of stunned aliens behind her. For the first time in galactic history, a human had defeated a Vorthak warrior in single combat, and she had done it like it was no big deal at all. The 22nd war was over, but its effects were just beginning. The medical team arrived within minutes of the fight ending. They found Captain HFY sitting on the floor, holding his injured arm and staring at nothing. His thick shell had several hairline cracks, and his pride had taken an even bigger beating than his body. Dr. Yel Nara, the station's chief medical officer, scanned him with her portable equipment. The blue-skinned Kalarian had treated injured Vorthak warriors before, but never one who had been defeated by a human. 3 cracked ribs, dislocated shoulder, and severe bruising, she reported. "Nothing life-threatening. But you'll need at least a week to heal properly." HFY said nothing. He kept replaying the fight in his mind, trying to understand what had gone wrong. The human had moved so fast, so smoothly. Her technique had been perfect, like she had trained her whole life for that exact moment. "How did she do it?" he finally asked. "Doctor." Yel Nara looked around at the crowd of aliens who were still talking excitedly about what they had witnessed. "I think that's what everyone wants to know." Station security had arrived too, but their investigation was short. The security cameras had recorded everything. Maya had clearly acted in self-defense. Captain HFY had thrown the first blow, and she had simply defended herself. Commander Thex, the station's Rigelian security chief, watched the recording 3 times. Each viewing made him more amazed. The human's movements were so precise, so controlled. She had used exactly the right amount of force to stop the attack without seriously injuring her opponent. "Remarkable," he muttered to his assistant. "She could have killed him easily, but she chose not to." Such restraint. Meanwhile, word of the fight was spreading through the station like wildfire. Aliens who had missed the actual event crowded around those who had seen it, demanding every detail. The recordings were being shared on communication networks across the galaxy. Maya continued working as if nothing had happened. She finished moving her cargo containers and started on the next shipment, but she could feel hundreds of eyes watching her every movement. The whispered conversations followed her wherever she went. "Did you see how fast she moved?" She threw him like he was a child. "I thought humans were supposed to be weak. Maybe we were wrong about them." Dr. Kelnari, the station's lead xenobiologist, had been studying in her lab when the news reached her. She immediately dropped everything and began pulling up files on human physiology. As one of the galaxy's experts on alien life forms, she realized that something important had just been revealed. The galactic databases described humans as a recently discovered species from a moderately dangerous world. They were supposed to be fragile, with thin bones and weak muscles. Their lack of natural armor or weapons made them seem helpless compared to more advanced species. But Dr. Kelnari knew that databases could be wrong. Evolution was a complex process, and sometimes it produced surprising results. She began running calculations, comparing Earth's environment to other known worlds. What she found amazed her. Earth's gravity was indeed 1.2 times galactic standard. That seemed like a small difference. But over millions of years of evolution, it would have major effects. Humans would need denser bones, stronger muscles, and faster reflexes just to survive on their own world. She pulled up files on human history and culture. The species had spent thousands of years fighting constant wars. They had developed hundreds of different combat techniques. Their art and entertainment were filled with stories of conflict and struggle. "They're not weak at all," Dr. Kilnari whispered to herself. "They're warriors, every single one of them." She began writing a report that would change how the galaxy viewed humanity forever. Back in the cargo bay, the day shift had ended. Maya was cleaning up her work area when Krell approached her nervously. The blue alien's 6 tentacle arms were twisted together in a sign of deep anxiety. "Excuse me, Miss Chen," he said quietly. "Could I ask you a question?" Maya looked up from organizing her tools. "Sure. What's on your mind? Are all humans like you? I mean, can all of you fight like that?" Maya thought about the question seriously. Well, not everyone trains in martial arts. But most humans learn some kind of self-defense. And we're all pretty tough, compared to what you might expect. Krell's skin turned a deeper shade of blue, which was his species' sign of fear. "How tough?" "Put it this way," Maya said with a slight smile. "Where I grew up, we had children who could probably out-wrestle some of the aliens I've met here. And I'm considered pretty average by human standards." Krell's tentacles began shaking. If Maya was average, what were the strong humans like? What about human soldiers? What about human athletes? "Thank you for your honesty," he said, and quickly walked away. Similar conversations were happening all over the station. Aliens who had worked alongside humans for months were suddenly seeing them in a new light. The quiet efficiency they had mistaken for weakness was actually careful control. The politeness they had seen as submission was really just good manners. In the Vorthak quarter of the station, Captain Zexhi's defeat was causing major shockwaves. The Vorthak prided themselves on being the galaxy's greatest warriors. Their entire culture was built around strength and combat prowess. The idea that a human female could defeat their captain was almost impossible to accept, but the recordings did not lie. Zexhi had attacked with full force, and Maya had countered with perfect technique. She had thrown him, pinned him, and then walked away like it was nothing special. Some Vorthak called for revenge. They wanted to challenge every human on the station to prove that Zexhi's defeat was a fluke. But the wiser heads prevailed. If one average human could defeat their best warrior, what would happen if they provoked the entire human species? As news of the fight spread beyond Kepler Station, diplomatic channels across the galaxy began buzzing with activity. Trade representatives started reconsidering their dealings with Earth. Military advisors began writing new reports about human capabilities. On Earth itself, the news was met with a mixture of pride and worry. Maya Chen had become famous overnight. But her victory also meant that humanity could no longer hide among the harmless species. They would have to deal with being seen as a potential threat. Maya finished her work and headed home to her small quarters. She had no idea that her 20-second fight had changed everything. In her mind, she had simply defended herself against an unreasonable bully. But the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. As she walked through the station's corridors, other beings stepped aside to let her pass. Some looked at her with fear, others with respect, a few with curiosity about what other secrets the human species might be hiding. The age of human innocence was over. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, and new responsibilities. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Tonight, Maya just wanted to get some sleep and prepare for another day of moving cargo. After all, she still had a job to do. 3 weeks after the fight, Captain Zexhi stood in the station's gymnasium. His shell had healed completely, but the cracks in his pride were taking much longer to mend. He watched through the observation window as Maya Chen worked out with other humans. The gym had become a popular gathering place for curious aliens. They came to watch humans exercise and try to understand how such fragile beings could be so strong. What they saw challenged everything they thought they knew. Maya was sparring with Jake Morrison, a human cargo loader who had arrived on the station just last week. To the watching aliens, it looked like a deadly battle. The two humans moved with lightning speed, striking and blocking faster than most species could follow. But Maya and Jake were just having fun. They pulled their punches, kept their movements controlled, and stopped whenever someone got too close to being hurt. What looked like violence to the aliens was actually a friendly workout session. "Incredible," whispered Dr. Kelnari to Commander Thex. "Look at their reflexes. Their coordination. No wonder Miss Chen defeated the captain so easily." Thex nodded grimly. His security team had been studying human combat techniques ever since the incident. What they learned had been both fascinating and terrifying. Humans were natural fighters, trained from childhood in competition and conflict. "My people fought wars for thousands of years," Maya had told him during her interview. "We learned to be good at it, or we didn't survive." In the gym, Jake threw a practice punch at Maya's head. She ducked under it smoothly, grabbed his extended arm, and could have thrown him across the room. Instead, she just tapped his ribs gently and stepped back with a grin. "Point to Maya," called out Sarah Kim, another human who was keeping score of their sparring match. The watching aliens exchanged nervous looks. These creatures were playing with techniques that could kill most galactic species, and they seemed to enjoy it. HFY had been studying human martial arts videos for days now. His own people had contacted Earth to request training materials, hoping to understand how they had been so thoroughly defeated. What they received shocked them. Humans did not just have one fighting style, they had hundreds. Boxing, wrestling, judo, karate, kung fu, kickboxing, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, and dozens of others. Each style had been developed over centuries of warfare and refined through countless battles. Maya's technique had been a combination of several styles, perfectly adapted to fighting a larger, stronger opponent. She had used HFY's size and momentum against him, turning his greatest strengths into weaknesses. The Vorthak warrior code demanded that he challenge her to a rematch. But his studies had taught him that Maya had been holding back during their fight. She could have broken his arm instead of just dislocating it. She could have damaged his spine instead of just pinning him down. She had chosen mercy over victory, which was perhaps the most warrior-like thing of all. The gym session ended, and Maya headed for the exit. She found HFY waiting for her in the corridor. For a moment, they stared at each other in silence. Then the massive alien did something that shocked everyone who saw it. He bowed. It was a formal Vorthak bow, showing respect for a worthy opponent. Maya did not understand the cultural significance, but she recognized the gesture as friendly. "Captain," she said politely. "How are you feeling?" "Better," HFY rumbled. "My shell has healed. My education continues." Maya looked confused. "Education? I have been studying your people's fighting techniques. I begin to understand why my defeat was so complete." Other aliens in the corridor stopped to listen. They had never heard a Vorthak warrior admit defeat so openly. "You're not defeated," Maya said kindly. "You just ran into something you weren't expecting. It happens to everyone." HFY shook his massive head. "I was arrogant. I believed my own people's stories about human weakness. I did not see the truth that was right in front of me." "What truth?" "That humans are warriors, perhaps the finest warriors in the galaxy." Maya laughed, though not unkindly. "We're not warriors, Captain. We're just people trying to get by. We only fight when we have to." "That," said HFY slowly, "is exactly what makes you so dangerous." News of the captain's public respect for Maya spread quickly through the station. If a Vorthak warrior could acknowledge human strength, then other species began to reconsider their own attitudes. Trade negotiations with human merchants became more respectful. Work assignments became more fair. Jokes about human weakness became much less common. Dr. Kelnari's report had reached the Galactic Council by now. Her findings about human evolution and capabilities were being studied by xenobiologists across the galaxy. Earth was being reclassified as a high-gravity death world that produced enhanced survival traits in its inhabitants. The diplomatic implications were enormous. Earth's representatives found themselves invited to security councils and military planning sessions. Other species wanted to know if humans would be willing to serve as peacekeepers or military advisors. On Kepler Station, Maya noticed the changes in how people treated her. Aliens who used to ignore her now greeted her politely. Her supervisor had offered her a promotion to cargo bay supervisor. Though she had turned it down, she liked the physical work and did not want to spend all day behind a desk. But the most significant change was in the station's atmosphere. Humans were no longer seen as fragile creatures who needed protection. They were viewed as potential allies, valuable partners, or possible threats depending on the situation. Maya was checking inventory in the storage bay when she heard familiar voices. She looked up to see Captain HFY talking with a group of young Vorthak warriors who had recently arrived on the station. The human female. One of them was saying, "She truly defeated you in combat?" "She did," HFY replied without shame. "And she did it while holding back her full strength. I have studied recordings of human military training. What she showed me was nothing compared to what their soldiers can do." "Perhaps we should challenge the other humans," suggested another young warrior. "Prove that your defeat was unusual." HFY's voice became stern. "You will do no such thing. We have learned an important lesson here. Never judge an opponent by their appearance. These humans may look weak, but they are anything but." Maya smiled to herself and continued her work. It was nice to have the respect of someone like Captain HFY, even if she had never asked for it. The truth was, she just wanted to do her job well and be treated fairly. The fight had been unfortunate, but maybe some good would come out of it. If humans were going to be part of the galactic community, they needed to be seen as equals rather than curiosities. As her shift ended, Maya gathered her equipment and headed home. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new cargo to move, and probably more curious aliens wanting to know about human capabilities. But she was ready for whatever came next. After all, she was human. She had been born ready for anything. In the years that followed, the story of Maya Chen and her 22nd victory would become legend. It would be told in military academies and diplomatic schools across the galaxy. It would serve as a reminder that appearances can be deceiving, and that strength comes in many forms. But for Maya, it would always just be the day she stood up for herself against a bully. The day she proved that humans belonged among the stars, not as servants or curiosities, but as equals. The galaxy was a big place, full of wonders and dangers. But humans had earned their place in it, one 22nd fight at a time. And Maya Chen would always be remembered as the woman who started it all.